Today, we are diving deep into Atomic Habits by James Clear. This is one of those books that really changes how you think about getting things done and improving yourself. We're going to break down the core ideas, these simple but honestly pretty profound principles that show why making tiny little changes can lead to absolutely remarkable results. Let's just jump right in. So, let's start with something I think we've all felt. That question. Why is it so incredibly hard to make new habits stick? You know the drill, we all start January with these great intentions, right? We're going to exercise more, we're going to eat healthier, we're going to learn that new language. But then, sure enough, that motivation just fizzles out. And we're right back where we started. Sound familiar? Yeah, it's super frustrating. But what if I told you the problem isn't you? It's not about a lack of willpower or motivation. According to James Clear, we've been approaching this all wrong. We try to change our outcomes, the big goals, when what we really need to change are our systems. He has this amazing line. You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And that idea right there, that completely flips the script on how we should think about building habits.
Okay, so if we need a better system, how do we build one? Well, the first step is to forget about making some massive dramatic change. The real secret, the real key to all of this, is the power of getting just 1% better every single day. And to really see what this looks like in the real world, let's talk about one of the most incredible turnarounds in the history of sports.
For about 100 years, the British professional cycling team was, well, a total joke. They were so consistently bad, so mediocre, that one of the top bike manufacturers in Europe actually refused to sell them their bikes. They were afraid it would hurt their brand if other pro cyclists saw the Brits using their gear. I mean, can you imagine? That's how bad they were.
But then, in 2003, they hired a new performance director named Dave Brailsford. And he didn't come in with some radical new training plan. Instead, he brought in this philosophy of making tiny, almost obsessive improvements. We're talking about redesigning the bike seats to be more comfortable, sure, but also rubbing alcohol on the tires for a little better grip. He even hired a surgeon to teach the riders the right way to wash their hands to avoid getting sick. They tested different massage gels. They found the perfect pillow for each rider's sleep posture. They even painted the inside of the team truck white just so they could spot any little bit of dust that might mess with the bikes. Nothing was too small.
And the one number, the one guiding principle behind all of this obsessive detail? Just 1%. Find a 1% improvement everywhere.
This whole strategy has a name: the aggregation of marginal gains. Brailsford's theory was pretty simple. If you could identify every little thing that goes into riding a bike and then just improve each of those things by a tiny 1%, you'd end up with a huge increase in performance when you put it all together. But here's the real magic. Those little gains don't just add up, they compound. And over time, that tiny 1% improvement each day leads to exponential growth. The results, they were absolutely staggering. The team completely dominated the sport for the next decade. So we know that these tiny, compounding gains are unbelievably powerful. But how do we actually get ourselves to stick with these new behaviors? Well, James Clear's next big idea is a total game changer. It's all about shifting your focus from what you want to achieve to who you wish to become. So here's the difference. Most of us, we set outcome-based goals. We say things like, I want to lose 40 pounds, or I want to write a book. But those goals are way out there in the future. The identity-based approach is completely different. The goal isn't to write a book. The goal is to become a writer. The focus is on your identity. So instead of just looking at the finish line, you start asking yourself, what would a writer do today? And then you just do that. Each action becomes a vote for the type of person you want to be. And this is exactly why it's so incredibly powerful. When a habit is literally part of your identity, it's not something you have to do, it's just who you are. You're not forcing yourself to write. You're a writer, so of course you write. You're not forcing yourself to eat healthy. You're a healthy person, so you just make healthy choices. The pride you feel in your new identity becomes the engine that drives you forward. Let me give you a perfect little story that shows how this works. There was a guy named Brian Clark who wanted to stop biting his nails. He tried using willpower for years and nothing worked. So then he did something totally different. He went and got a professional manicure. And for the first time in his life, his nails actually looked nice. He started to feel proud of them. He wasn't just trying to stop a bad habit anymore. He was becoming someone who takes pride in caring for his nails. The identity shifted, and just like that, the bad habit was gone.
Okay, so we're making 1% improvements. We're building a new identity. But there's this third massive force at play that's often way more powerful than our motivation or our willpower, and that's our environment. The real secret to self-control, Clear says, is to design a world where you barely have to use it.
Take a look at this number, 90%. What does that mean? Well, it represents a massive failure rate. But a failure of what exactly?
That's the relapse rate for heroin users who go through rehab, get clean in a clinic, and then go right back to their old neighborhood, back to the same environment, surrounded by the same people and the same triggers that fueled their addiction in the first place.
Now look at this, 12%. Just 12. What on earth could possibly explain that huge drop, that massive difference?
This was the relapse rate for American soldiers who were addicted to heroin during the Vietnam War. When they flew back home to a completely different environment, almost 9 out of 10 of them just stopped, almost overnight. This discovery completely shattered the conventional wisdom about addiction.
So what happened? It wasn't that these soldiers suddenly developed some kind of superhuman willpower. No, what changed was their environment. In Vietnam, they were surrounded by triggers, the constant stress of war, easy access to the drug, a social circle of other users. But back home in the US, that entire context just vanished. It wasn't the person that changed so dramatically, it was their world. When the context changed, the habit changed with it.
And this is such an empowering idea, isn't it? It means the key to better habits isn't just about trying harder or having more discipline. It's about designing a better environment. You can make your good habits obvious and easy. Want to eat more fruit? Okay, put a bowl of apples right there on the counter where you can't miss it. Want to drink more water? Great, keep a water bottle on your desk all day. You don't have to be a victim of your world. You can be the architect of it.
All right, so you're making your small changes, you're building a new identity, you're designing your environment for success. But we all know that progress is never a straight line. You're going to hit plateaus, you're going to feel bored. So how do you stay motivated for the long haul, especially when you hit a wall? Let's look at the final piece of this puzzle.
The comedian Steve Martin looks like a classic overnight success, right? But his story tells you something very different. He spent a decade, 10 years, learning his craft, performing in small, often totally empty clubs. Then he spent another 4 years just refining his act. It was only after nearly 15 years of just showing up, of consistent effort, that he became a household name. His journey proves that mastery is all about patience and just staying in the game long enough for your efforts to finally pay off.
So how do you stay in the game for 15 years like Steve Martin did? Clear points to something called the Goldilocks rule. It turns out that we humans feel peak motivation when we're working on tasks that are right on the edge of our current abilities. Not too easy, because you'll get bored out of your mind, and not too hard, because you'll get totally frustrated and give up. The real key to long-term consistency is finding that just right challenge that keeps you engaged and making progress day after day, year after year.
So let's bring it all home. Real, lasting change isn't about massive transformation. It's about making those tiny 1% improvements. It's about building an identity you're proud of, not just chasing some distant goal. It's about designing your world to make success the easy path. And it's about finding that just right challenge that keeps you coming back for more. So I'll leave you with this question. What's one tiny change, one little thing, you can do today to cast a vote for the person you want to become?